Okay, people who rely on Adderall may not be getting the help they need. The FDA announced a shortage on October 12th. A research and analytics company found the demand for Adderall has risen nearly 27% in recent years. Prescriptions jumped from 35.5 million in 2019 to 45 million last year. 8 manufacturers have reported shortages. The FDA's website says there's an increase in demand and shortage of supply. Some providers list no reason at all. Experts say that is part of the problem.
It's really difficult to be able to anticipate and let alone come up with meaningful solutions if you don't know what the problem is.
The FDA says it's working with manufacturers to increase supply, but it cannot force pharmaceutical companies to make drugs.
So let's talk about Adderall. Our 9 Health expert, Dr. Payal Kohli, is with us now, and I would have to imagine that this is one of the biggest selling drugs in the American pharmaceutical system.
It is incredibly popular. And if you think about what Adderall is, it's essentially an amphetamine salt. So it's a prescription amphetamine. And when you take Adderall, regardless of whether you have ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder or not, you function better. Your mood is elevated, you have more energy, you're better at doing your work. So Adderall is one of those drugs that, in my opinion, is being overprescribed.
But you make it sound good. There's a price to be paid for those upsides you just talked about that some people are looking for.
There's a huge price. And as a cardiologist, Tom and Kim, I am so worried that we have really evolved into what the New York Times is calling Generation Adderall, where many of our kids, our adolescents, our college kids are using Adderall either recreationally or on a regular basis to perform better. And again, it's a stimulant. So think about what you're doing to your heart, your blood pressure. And we don't have any data on the long-term cardiac risks of using a stimulant every single day. And so it's essentially, we're a human experiment at this time, because some of the risks of Adderall may start to emerge 20, 30 years later.
It's been around forever, but it kind of got trendy, like when, late 90s, and like you talk about parents and things. I mean, the screening, is it good screening to determine if somebody needs Adderall? Do you have to have multiple screenings?
Yeah, it's interesting. So it actually got discovered in the late 1920s when one of these chemists was looking for treatment for asthma, because it's a derivative of adrenaline, which relaxes our airways. So he injected himself with Adderall, and then he noted in his medical notes that he couldn't sleep and he had an elevated mood. So
this is how they used to test stuff? Just inject yourself with some and see what happens?
Almost every doctor out there. Yes. And so it's funny because you hear his experience. And they actually used it during World War II in soldiers because it helped them perform better. But to your point, Kim, ADHD got diagnosed as classified as a DSM disease in 1987. So in the 90s, we started to see some kids on it. And then early 2000s, now it's become a popular thing for adults. And we don't screen that aggressively. If somebody reports symptoms of lack of focus, inability to concentrate, things that can be confounded.
That's all the things that all of us have.
But guess what else? We're not sleeping well. We're drinking more alcohol than we should. And those are all factors that can contribute to those symptoms. So again, in my opinion, we're not screening hard enough for who needs it.
Okay, 2 questions. It sounds very much like you're saying it is very much overprescribed. So parents especially, but people in general need to pay attention to that.
Completely.
Are there alternatives? Whether they're drugs or other things that might help someone if you think Adderall might be for you?
ADHD is a difficult disease. So if you actually have ADHD, it's one of those diseases that people say will lift the veil of your disease. So people say it's like looking through foggy glasses when you have ADHD and you get on Adderall and all of a sudden the world is clear. So for the right person, I think it's the right medicine. But as a cardiologist, my advice is the lowest dose for the lowest duration to get that benefit in the right person. So if you have ADHD, you ought to use it and be comfortable using it because it is recommended for that.
It's really.
But yes.
But then we look at the shortage, and all I can think of is pharmaceutical companies are cha-ching, okay, let's see if we can't make more.
I think there's 2 components to that. So one is we're overprescribing. So doctors need to be more mindful of who really actually needs it. And the second, those pharmaceutical companies create these bottlenecks sometimes because it does increase demand and it creates a little bit of a hype. We see this with Ozempic and some of the other medications. So I do think that we need to start to hold them accountable. But as individuals, don't just get caught up in that Generation Adderall. If somebody says, oh, I feel great on Adderall, you should try it, you really ought to ask yourself about the cardiovascular risks. Talk to your doctor.
Do some research, yeah. Yeah, talk to your doctor is always a good idea. We
Take
have
a
one
walk.
right here.
Feel better.
Talk to your doctor.
I'm going to talk to Dr.
We just
Kohli.
did.
We did. And we just
did.
learned.
You all learned something.
We all learned.
Have a great weekend. Thanks for dropping in today. It's good to see you, Dr. Payal Kohli.